Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, whoever happens to be with us today. Thank you for joining me. I am Megan Caper, and I am an energy healer, a spiritual advisor, and a channel for spirit guides. And I'm here today to talk to you about sort of my life's work and my sort of 101 presentation point of view on what I think it takes to live a content, joyous life. I call it the Stronger Self Project. And I'm going to get into what that is in just a minute. But before I start, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I have had, like everyone, a life with a lot of ups and downs. I grew up in a family with a parent with multiple undiagnosed mental illnesses. Made my way out of that environment, found my way on my own, was living happily in San Francisco, and then at the age of 30 got diagnosed with late stage colon cancer. And so went through colon cancer treatment, dealt with all of the physical, emotional, spiritual side effects from that. Because I live in the US and this was before affordable care, I ended up six figures in debt from my cancer treatment. So then I paid that off over the course of a decade. It kind of ruined me financially. And through that process, all of that, I had to figure out how to be strong, but not push everything down, how to really genuinely find a place of happiness and balance. Now, in all of that, I also got to live in Australia for a year, got to live in Italy for a year, traveled all around the world, Indonesia, Iceland, Europe. Um, I've had two amazing long term relationships with really amazing people that both ended when it was time for them to end. I have amazing family. I have amazing friends. I have two of the best pets in the world, right? So, this is sort of, I'm telling you all this because this is sort of part of what I'm going to get into is that life is not all roses and there's no really a way to make it be all roses all the time, but there is a way to navigate it with grace and joy and gratitude and appreciation and sort of a more even keel when the tough stuff does come up. So, are you ready to get into it? I hope you are. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so let me go into presentation mode here. All right, and then I'm going to move this up and make myself a little bit bigger. Okay, so I hope that the way this is recording, you can see me and the slideshow. I guess I'll check it after I finish recording. So here we go. I call this the Stronger Self Project because I feel like strength is at the key of this. And it's not just about pushing through or pushing things down. It really is about having that core sense of stability and integrity with yourself and awareness of yourself and what you do want to do and don't want to do and what's going to make you happy and what's not going to make you happy. So that's why I called it this. The subtitle is something that one of my clients talked about in reference to my work with her, and I love it. She just said, "Can this endless freaking healing work be over already?" I love that because it feels like sometimes we've tried everything. We've tried books, we've tried therapy, we've tried this, we've tried that, and we're still working at it. So I can totally relate to that. And the way she put that, I thought was just so funny. So that's the subtitle for this presentation. All right, you ready? Here we go. Okay. So, how can I finally be happy? How can the healing finally be done? How can I finally be done with all of this, right? That's what a lot of people ask me. And the answer is actually you can't. You can't. Sorry, not sorry. Happiness is one emotional state on the wheel of emotions. And we're going to get into the wheel of emotions on the next slide. But the others are anger, grief, worry, and fear. And you actually have to experience all of these in order to get to joy or happiness. It's sort of like the stages of grief, which you guys have heard about. Like you have to sort of cycle through all of them and go back and forth and bounce a little bit before you can find resolution or let go. Happiness is the same way. You have to experience all of these other things. You wouldn't understand what happiness was unless you'd ever experienced sadness, right? It's a contrast. And so you can think of it that way too, in that the experience of happiness is you're only aware of what happiness feels like because it's in contrast to you feeling unhappy or sad, right? So, in order to experience any one of these, we must be open to experience all of the others. You can't be happy all the time. You actually can't stay in the joy state all the time. It's unhealthy, just like it's unhealthy to stay in the anger state all the time or unhealthy to stay in the worry state all of the time. But what you can be is secure, stable, appreciative, grateful, and in love with your life, which is where I've ended up after years of doing this work. So I think that sounds pretty good. I'm happy with it here. And so I'm hoping to teach you a little bit about what I've learned and how I've done this so that you can get here too. Okay, so here's the emotion wheel I was talking about. Hopefully you can see most of this. I think my image might be cutting it off a little bit, but you can at least see the main emotions. And this is based off of Chinese medicine, off of the 5 element theory, which is a cycle. But this cycle can be seen everywhere. So the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of day and night, the cycle of breathing, right? Of our lungs expanding, and then deflating, of our heart beating and doing the same thing. And our emotions just follow this natural cycle that I believe is one of the fundamental principles of the universe, and that you can find everywhere once you start looking. So I'm going to go over this briefly just so you can sort of understand what is going on here. So in the center here, we have the main 5 emotions that I talked about on the previous slide. So we've got joy, worry, grief, fear, and anger. And then within these, this is broken down into like a bunch of different other sort of subcategories or different words for more specific ways of feeling these emotions. You can find this on the internet. So if you want to look at this in more depth, you can find that there, or you can contact me and I can email it to you if you're interested. But what I want to talk about is on the next slide, I'm going to talk about that this is a cycle. And like I said before, you can't get to joy without going through worry, grief, fear, and anger. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So, but I find this really fascinating. I love just staring at this sometimes just to like, lonely is a kind of fear, right? Or hurt is a kind of grief, despair is a kind of grief, right? And you'll notice that some words in here sound a little funny to our Western awareness, like courageousness is a form of grief. Well, that's weird. But if you think about it, like courageousness is feeling afraid and doing it anyway, right? That's sort of one of our definitions for courageousness. So it is a form of fear. It comes from fear. So I find this really, really fascinating. I won't spend too much time on it because I want to move on. But if you guys are interested, like I said, contact me and I can email this to you or just Google it and you'll find it. Okay, so the wheel of emotions. This wheel represents the cycle or progression of emotions. So I'm going to give you an example of how this works. So joy, let's say you get your dream job. You're overjoyed. You just got offered your dream position with an amazing salary in the perfect location, and it's all going incredibly well, right? You feel joy. You feel this exuberance, this bubbling up, that kind of thing. What naturally happens is you feel that joy, right? Or let's say this is a new relationship or, a new child, anything that comes into our life that brings us joy. You feel that joy. And then naturally, what our emotions do is you start to feel worry. And that worry is about the things the thing that gives us joy will go away. So, what are the things that could go wrong, right? Or what are the things that we start to see aren't perfect? Like we get to this perfect job and realize that our cubicle mate is kind of annoying, right? And so we worry, oh my God, this joy that I was holding on to so tightly is going away, right? So then we lose the joy, right? So let's say we have some of the joy still, we have the job, but we have this cubicle mate who's super annoying. We start feeling grief. And so grief is the natural response to losing something that brought us joy. So we normally think of grief in terms of someone dying or something like that. That is losing something that brought us joy or had meaning to us in our lives. Having meaning is another way of talking about joy. So grief, so it goes from joy to worry that we'll lose it, and then grief over the way it's not perfect or the thing that we lost. Again, totally, this is all part of the natural cycle. So we lose that thing. Then we go into fear. We fear that we'll never find that joy again. We fear that we're in this state of scarcity or lack and that or unknown, right? I don't know how to get that joyful thing back or the next joyful thing that I want. It brings up fear, again, a natural part of the cycle. Then we get into anger. Anger is that we don't like our current circumstances. I'm pissed that I have this perfect job, and yet I have this cubicle mate who crunches loudly all day long and talks on the phone, and I can't concentrate, right? We get angry about this thing. Anger, I actually love anger. Anger drives us to change our circumstances. I am not in a state of joy. I am not in a state of bliss. So I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to change that. And again, that's sort of where that courageousness comes in. I'm going from this place of fear and scarcity and lack to like, no, I'm going to do something about it, right? So then we do something about it. We change our circumstances. We move to a new cubicle, or we, get that cubicle mate to move, or whatever it is, right? We change our circumstances. We do something about it, and then we're back in joy. We've changed our circumstances to something more in alignment with what makes us happy. That is joy. When we are in alignment and have a meaningful circumstance or person or relationship that makes us happy. But guess what? The cycle continues, right? So we're in that state of joy. What's going to happen next? You guessed it, worry that the thing that gives us joy is going to go. And then noticing that the ways that that it's not perfect, and then grief over those, and then et cetera, right? The cycle continues. So this is normal. This is how things work. This is how breathing works. This is how the seasons work. This is how the spiraling of the galaxies work. This is a fundamental principle of nature and the universe, and it is in us as well, since we are part of nature and the universe. So the hard truth is that life is messy and not always pleasant. Well-balanced people will spend about 50% of their lives having pleasant emotions and about 50% having unpleasant ones. So what I was saying about that cycle, it's natural, but you don't necessarily spend exactly the same amount of time in every one of those little sections. So you might spend a little less time in grief and a little more in fear, et cetera, et cetera. So you can sort of get to the point where you're spending more time in that joy arc, and then the other ones can happen a little more quickly. And I'll go into some ways that you can, sorry, my foot was falling asleep. I'll go into some ways that you can do that in just a few slides. So what can we do to make this better? The secret is really finding balance and flow. Okay, so this slide is showing a river. This is my metaphor for sort of life and finding that balance and flow and what gets in our way. So if you look at the very top here by the mountains, this is birth, right? So this is the beginning of the river. The snow melts and it comes down the mountains and it starts a river. That's like birth, our life flow, the water flow starts. And then as we go down the river, these are little cross sections. So here's a cross section here. The water's flowing pretty smoothly, but there are some rocks and some logs and some stuff floating in there. And so I want to go over what these represent. The rocks and the logs are obstacles. They're things that the flow of life has to get around. They're always going to be there. There's no way to avoid them. And then I also like to talk about the banks of the river are like our life context, right? So that's where we live, the people in our life, our family, um, the society we live in, the culture we live in, all of that stuff. It's sort of unchanging, and it contains the life flow, it contains the water, and we have to work within the context of the banks and the bottom of the river, right? So we've got the obstacles here, we've got the banks and the bottom of the river as our context of our life, and then we've got this water that's flowing along, which is our life force or our life path. Sometimes, so here's another part of the river, sometimes it looks like this. Sometimes the water is barely flowing and it feels like mostly obstacles, and like there's sediment buildup at the bottom. And so, like, we're constrained by our choices because of society or because of this or because of that, right? So sometimes it's much harder for the water to flow. So, sometimes life is like this at the top where it's easy going, and sometimes it feels really hard, right? And then at the very, very end of the river, of this flow of life, we get to where it meets the ocean, and this is the end of life. I believe that we reconnect with a universal consciousness or source, divine wow, God, whatever you want to call it, at the end of our life. That much like the ocean, we rejoin this larger consciousness, this larger awareness. And then what happens is exactly what happens to the ocean is that eventually it evaporates, it becomes clouds, it moves on land, it dumps more snow on the mountains, and then that water becomes another life or another human experience. That has to go down through, all of its twists and turns and obstacles and whatnot until it reaches the end of life again. So this is what I believe. This is how I think. This, I think, is a pretty decent metaphor for how life works, both spiritually and also emotionally. I want to give credit to the inspiration for this model is what's called the Kawa model, Kawa. It's a Japanese model that I learned about in occupational therapy school when I was in graduate school. And I took that and sort of elaborated on it, but I do want to give credit to that because that was sort of my inspiration. Okay, so we talked about this. I'm just going to go over it again. The elements of the river of life. So the source of the river from the rain and the snowfall in the mountains is your birth, right? We come from this universal consciousness, from this water. The water itself is the flow of time and your life events. The banks and the bottom of the river are your life context, like social, family, cultural, etc. The rocks and the logs are the obstacles and problems that redirect the flow and get in the way, right? So those are things where it all of a sudden the water is not going the way we want it to, right? And then the ocean is death. It's returned to source, God, universal consciousness, divine wow, whatever you want to call it. So that's sort of the summary of that. All right, so how do you navigate a river? This, I think, is so important. What would make this journey easier? My friends, I present to you the secret to life: a boat. We need a boat. We need a really good, solid, stable, exciting boat that we get to design. So, do you want a speedboat where you feel every bump and log and twist and turn? Or do you want like a big yacht where you just get to lay out on the sun deck next to the hot tub all day and you like barely feel anything that's going by? What kind of boat do you want? And you get to design it, but regardless of what you design, you got to agree that having a boat is better than just like flailing around in the water, like bumping up against the logs and the rocks, and not having a way to stabilize yourself, to have a tool that will help you get down this river and help you navigate past the rocks and the logs and enjoy the time when the river is calm and sunny. A boat is the key. Okay, so on our river of life, our metaphor for what can make us feel strong, stable, safe, secure, resilient, all of that stuff is the boat. So, how do you build a boat, you may ask? We're going to need a better boat. So as I said, having a better boat means you can navigate the flow of the water, you can maneuver around the rock and log obstacles, and you can weather the storms that come your way. Having a better boat means you're more even keeled, able to enjoy the present moment without worrying about what's around the bend, right? So, too many of us that don't have a good boat live in this place of anxiety and fear because we're like, what if another rock comes? What if a log comes? What if there's some rapids, right? So, having a good boat allows you to feel comfortable, like, nope, my boat can handle it. Doesn't matter what's coming up, I'm going to be able to manage it. So you feel confident that you can enjoy the good times and stay afloat during the bad times. Okay, so I'm going to want to talk about what it takes to have a good boat. So from what I've experienced, there's sort of three main components to what it takes to have a good boat. The first one is resilience. So the definition of resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Another way to think about it is the ability to bounce back, or the quality of being elastic and adaptable. Now, I want to really point out that there is a difference between being elastic and adaptable and pushing things down and moving on without addressing them. Okay, we are going for obviously the first. The second one will work in the short term, but eventually your boat will start to get some holes in it and things will start to break down, right? It's not a good solid foundation for how to have a good boat. So, what we are really talking about is the process of allowing the adversity, trauma, tragedy, sources of stress to come up, allowing ourselves to experience them, to go through that emotion wheel as needed, however many times, spending however much time we need to in each stage, and then allowing the wheel to continue. So that is resilience. It's being elastic and being able to get back to that place of joy, right? To go through everything, allow it to come up and get back to that place of joy. That's resilience. It is not about pushing through and not dealing with the fear, not dealing with the worry, not dealing with the anger. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. So I want to make sure that that distinction is clear. This is about finding ways to go through that emotion wheel and let it all happen, let it all come up. So the second thing that I think is important for having a solid boat is grit. So grit is the ability to persist after setbacks. So grit is really the ability to have something happen to us or to have a failure happen, like we try something and we fail in our business, or something, a medical issue happens to us, or a relationship. It's the ability to, again, let ourselves experience what we need to experience from that, the shame of a failure, or the sadness of a relationship ending, or the grief of someone dying. Let it process through and then pick ourselves up and keep going. Okay, so it's the ability to learn from our mistakes and our failures and continue to move forward. That's the definition I found for grit. So grit, again, is not about pushing through things. It again is about allowing that cycle to continue, but grit is about not getting stuck in any part of the cycle, right? So grit is about not getting stuck in anger or stuck in fear. It's about allowing ourselves to return back to that place of actually anger. Anger is the first forward moving ocean, right? Emotion, right? I don't like my circumstances. I'm going to change them. And then anger will naturally lead into joy once we change our circumstances back into something that works for us. So it's about not getting stuck in any of those cycles on the emotion wheel and continuing to go until we are able to pick ourselves up and go, you know what? I'm not happy. I'm going to change my circumstances to something that makes me happy. Okay. And then the third aspect of a solid boat is what I call your bag, your BHAG, which is your big, hairy ass goal. AKA your big why. So this is your purpose or the cause or the belief system that drives you. So maybe your belief system is you want to be a good parent, And that's what like picks you up and gets you going again, and motivates you and inspires you. Maybe it's to be a role model to others. Maybe it's to leave your mark on the world, to create something new and important and inspired so that other people, um, can have it easier or find beauty in art or whatever it is, right? These So first of all, there's you have more than one, right? They sometimes, like, obviously as a parent, maybe it's to like be a good parent, but as a, if you're a actor, maybe it's to create great art, right? So these change depending on the roles in our life. And they also change throughout our lives. So what was important to me at 21 is very different than what's important to me now. So these are also going to change, but it's important to know yourself and know, what are my core values? What are the things that really drive me in life? So this is sort of the third aspect of having a solid boat. Okay, so again, just to review, those three aspects are resilience or elasticity, right? Being able to bounce back after something happens, grit, so being able to pick yourself up and keep going. And then your bag, your big hairy ass goal, knowing your deeper beliefs or your why, or what it is that's going to drive you, inspire you, make you happy and full of joy in life. Okay, so how sounds good, Megan? That's great. How do I build a better boat? So there are many, 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 many ways to do this. There's not one solution, but here are some of the ones I've found that work for me and for my clients. Meditation. You've probably heard this a lot. There's a ton of different types of meditation. It took me a while to find one that worked for me. And then meditation is a practice. So it also took doing it on a regular basis, almost daily. It's like learning an instrument. It's like learning to play the violin, or, learning to play a new sport or something. Like, it takes practice every day, and some days are better than others, but you sort of consistently can see the trend that you get better and better and better at it. So meditation has been a savior for me. I now crave it, whereas when I first started, I like so hard to get myself to do it, but now it's like one of my like everyday go-to ways of feeling that stability, that boat, that even keeled, that confidence that, you know whatever comes my way, I'm going to be able to handle it, and that feeling of strength. Therapy. I've been in and out of therapy my whole life. I love therapy. I think when you find a good therapist that you really can connect with, it can be really helpful and miraculous to get that outside point of view about what's going on. Developing a better relationship with yourself, other people, and the divine wow, or God, or source, or whatever you want to call it. So there are many, 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 many studies showing that our relationships improve our physical health, increase our lifespan, improve our emotional health, our resilience and grit, all of those things. So to me, there's three main relationships I have in my life. One is with myself, right? Developing that relationship with myself, making sure I treat myself with kindness and love and compassion, right? I try to talk to myself the same way I would talk to my best friend. And when I hear that self critic voice come up, I try to do whatever I can to switch that around and talk to myself with kindness and love. Other people, having relationships with other people in your life is so, so important, especially if, like me, you come from a pretty dysfunctional, abusive family. My found family, those people that I've had in my life for decades, those are my family now, right? Those are the people I spend holidays with. Those are the people I go to when I'm having a hard day and need to talk. So relationships with other people are so, so key. And then your spirituality, your relationship with however you conceive of God or the universe or whatever it is. That can also be a great source of comfort and strength. And I came from a place of growing up as an atheist. My parents were atheists. And so I came from thinking that spirituality was a bunch of hokey, right? Like, just something people made up, whatever. And it's only through having my own direct experiences over the years that I've come to develop my spirituality. And I think it's a very personal thing. So, whatever spirituality means to you, that's what your spirituality is. Gratitude, abundance, and appreciation work. So this is, again, something I've worked on for years and years and years. Gratitude is just about, appreciating the things that are going right in our life, right? So there's a life coach that I follow sometimes, named Brooke Castillo, and she talks about when anxiety comes up or worry or fear, she thinks clean drinking water. I have access to clean drinking water, and not everyone on this planet does, right? So that's something I can be grateful for. It could be that I had to walk 5 miles each way just to get water. So I am thankful that I am in a place where water comes out of the faucets, right? So just find those little things that you're like, wait a minute, it's not all bad. This thing is good. Or even, if it's bad right now, I have this memory of a time when I felt joy, and I know I will get back to that feeling again, if not that exact memory or that exact thing. Abundance and appreciation work. To me, these are actually two sides of the same coin. There's tons of books and movies and whatever on manifesting and abundance. It can be money, although honestly, I think when you open up the flow of abundance, it doesn't necessarily just come through as money, or that hasn't been what my experience is. It does come through as money, but it comes through as enriching and meaningful experiences, which you can buy some of those with money, but sometimes they're not monetary, right? Sometimes they're other things. Like I was just gifted a vacation a couple months ago, that I didn't have to pay for, with a really good friend. To me, that's an amazing source of abundance, and it's not necessarily reflected in my bank account, but oh my God, did that enrich my life and make me happy and joyous, right? So abundance and appreciation, like you sort of have to have the appreciation for the things that you're grateful for, and then the abundance sort of follows. And again, there's many, many programs for this, that you can do. Exercise. So exercise that you love. So this is important. If you're shaming yourself into exercise, this will not bring you joy. But if you find the thing that you love, like I love dancing around my apartment with headphones on. So like sometimes at night, I'll just like put headphones on and dance while I'm making dinner or whatever. That brings me joy, and I'm moving my body. Again, there's so many studies that show that moving your body increases your happiness, increases your gut motility, which increases your health of your microbiome, which produces serotonin and dopamine, which makes you happy, right? So there's all these ways in that moving your body can, help you feel more stable and happy, both because you're in the zone doing something you love, whether it's surfing or cycling or dancing, like you get happy in that moment. And then also it has these residual side effects to help your body stay in that happy, stable, grounded, even keeled state. Energy healing, which is what I do. I'm an energy healer. So there's all different types of energy healing. There's Reiki, acupuncture, body talk, AcuNect, body intuitive, emotion code. Like there's tons and tons and tons of them. I think that they really work wonderfully. They're a beautiful mind, body, spiritual healing practice, and they can definitely help your body come more towards that state of balanced health in general, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, so that it's easier for you to feel like you're in a solid boat. Self-improvement, books, podcasts, or other media. I'm a huge self-improvement junkie. I'm reading self-improvement books all the time. I'm following it podcasts. I'm, watching movies, et cetera, reading articles. So whatever your preferred way of taking in that information is, that can really be helpful. Reading the wisdom of someone else who's maybe walked this path before, I found is super, super helpful. And then a spiritual practice, which to me is sort of combined. Like I could see that how it's connected to the abundance, gratitude, and appreciation work. But again, developing whatever spiritual practice makes sense to you. So if that's going to a church, go to a church. If that's meditating, meditate. If that's taking a walk in nature and taking what the Japanese called a forest bath, go take a forest bath. Whatever makes you feel connected to something larger than yourself will help you realize that you are not in this all alone. You are part of a larger system, a larger ecosystem, a larger spiritual system, a larger consciousness. And then everything feels a little less scary and a little less chaotic and unbalanced. You're like, okay, I'm part of this larger thing, and this is just happening to me, but I am anchored to this larger thing, this larger force. Okay. So now you may be asking, Megan, can you help me? Can you help me build a better boat? Yes, I can. So if you resonated with this and you're interested in knowing more, I would love to chat with you and just see if there's a way that I can help. This is my passion. This is my life's work. I just, when we're talking about that bag, that big hairy ass goal, this is mine. Like, I want to help people be more stable and confident and compassionate and loving and grounded and even keeled and all of that stuff. It's something I've had to go through a lot of trial and error to find, and so now I just delight in helping other people find their way as well. So what I do is I do energy healing for building that stronger, more resilient, and gritty self that we talked about. So that's one-to-one work. I also do spiritual coaching with Saul. So I'm a channel. I channel a bunch of spirit guides that call themselves Saul. And I do that either one-to-one sessions, or I also do it as a group. I do it as group sessions, and people can sort of just come and ask their questions. If you've ever seen like an Abraham Hicks workshop, it's a lot like that, where she channels Abraham and then people ask questions, and she picks various people out of the audience and answers their questions. So I do that in a group setting as well. And then the last thing I can help you with is that gratitude, abundance, and appreciation work. I have a Facebook group, and it's a 4-month program, but I just keep continuing it. So like whenever you pop in, you just like start that day, and we just keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's just a way, it's a practice, again, much like meditation, of developing these relationships with yourself, with other people, and with divine, so that you can cultivate this, state of health, happiness, and abundance. So how do I find out more? If you're interested, again, I would love to chat. My website is the best place to find all of this information. And it's just my name, megancaper.com, megancaper.com. You can schedule one-to-one sessions there. I also have a button to schedule just a chance for us to chat. It's free, like just so that we can chat more about what's going on with you and see if we would be a good fit. I don't take on everyone. I am selective about who I work with. So I do want to chat with everyone before they book in for a one-to-one session, just to make sure that I really do feel like I can help you with what's going on with you, and that we'd work well together. Spiritual counseling. And so this is the Saul workshops. Again, I talked about it, sort of a group setting where Saul comes and answers all sorts of questions. And that is on my Podia site. So that's megancaper.podia.com. And the Gratitude, Abundance, and Appreciation group, it's called 4 Months to Greater Happiness, Health, and Abundance. And you can just search that on Facebook. It's free to join. We just started a new 4-month series, so you'd be hopping on right at a great time. And again, you can find that by searching for 4 Months to Greater Health, Happiness, Abundance. You'll see my picture, or there's a link to it there. Let's hope that we can all feel as good as this gnome appears to be feeling. I hope that this gave you some tools, tips, tricks, ways of thinking, ideas about how to get to that place of being like this dude, right? I mean, just sort of enjoying life, sitting there in nature, appreciating everything that's around you, appreciating your life, feeling gratitude for your life, realizing that the rocks and the logs and all of that are just temporary, and that you have the ability, the resilience, and the grit to get past them. I hope that I gave you some ideas and some inspiration for that. So thank you very much for listening. This is the end of my little chat with you guys, and I hope it was helpful. And again, if you want to know more, please reach out and schedule a chat with me. I would love to talk. That's it. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and much love to you all. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.